What if Europe's biggest surprise in America is not what stands still, but what is about to move? Trains racing toward Vegas, Teslas slipping beneath cities, taxis lifting into the sky, and cars driving with nobody at the wheel are rewriting travel itself. So why were millions told America was falling behind? And what happens when the country they underestimated becomes the one place they no longer want to leave?
As a native South Floridian who now lives in Orlando area, I love the Brightline. And I'm going to take it today first class from Miami to Orlando.
America moves first. The first crack in the old story arrives at 125 miles per hour, gliding through Florida with wide seats, clean windows, and absolutely no interest in asking Europe for permission. Anyone who follows European media too closely could be forgiven for imagining American transportation as an endless loop of traffic jams, broken sidewalks, and rental cars circling an airport until the driver begins questioning every decision made since childhood. Then Brightline appears between Miami and Orlando, looking less like a national embarrassment and more like the kind of train people secretly wish would show up in every vacation city.
The Brightline worth it? I just took the Brightline from West Palm to Orlando for the very first time, and I'm gonna break down the experience and let you know if it's really worth the price. Now, I'm not gonna lie to you, this place was clean. It had everything like an airport pretty much. And don't come for me, okay? Because I've literally never taken a train in my life. You had to go through security, but it was cool because you can actually bring your own liquids, unlike the airport, obviously. Then once you got to your gate, I guess, they had a cute little restaurant and snacks. The sitting area was nice.
That contrast explains much of the excitement. Europeans are already familiar with excellent rail. France has the TGV, Spain has the AVE, and Italy's Frecciarossa can carry passengers between historic cities, while the countryside slips past like a moving postcard. Brightline is not trying to pretend America invented the train. Its appeal comes from something more distinctly American. It takes a familiar idea, places it inside one of the world's busiest tourism corridors, wraps it in polished private service, and asks why the journey itself cannot feel like part of the vacation. Miami and Orlando are separated by a distance that once encouraged the usual uncomfortable choices. Travelers could drive for hours, negotiate Florida traffic, and arrive with the emotional condition of someone who had just survived a family board game. They could fly, although airports have a special talent for turning a short trip into an expedition involving security lines, gate changes, and a sandwich priced like coastal property. Brightline offers a calmer middle path, linking downtown Miami with Orlando International Airport while serving major South Florida cities along the way.
Accessibility benefits everyone, and Brightline understood the assignment. I recently took the Brightline train from Orlando to Fort Lauderdale and was so pleasantly surprised by how accessible the onboard restroom was. It was very spacious, especially compared to airplane restrooms, and it had an automatic door to open and close. And it automatically locks once you're inside, which is so great because locks are often very inaccessible.
If you ever wondered what it was like to take the train from Orlando to Miami, let me show you what it was like. So we got to the station 10 minutes before the train was scheduled to leave, and we were able to just get right on the train. Now, the first thing I noticed was how much leg room I had, and then there was like this little headrest that I loved because I was going to sleep for sure.
What surprises many European observers is not simply the existence of modern rail, but the business model behind it. Across much of Europe, intercity trains grew from large national systems supported and directed by governments. Brightline approaches passengers more like an airline or a hospitality company. The stations feel deliberate, the brand is recognizable, and the service is designed around people who value time, but would prefer not to spend half the day holding a steering wheel. Then comes Brightline West, the planned electric high-speed connection between Las Vegas and Southern California. The route almost sounds like America writing its own punchline. Take one of the most visited entertainment cities on Earth, connect it to a region containing millions of potential travelers, and run the train through a desert corridor where highway congestion can stretch longer than a casino buffet line. This is the America that gloomy headlines often miss. It's not a country sitting still and defending yesterday. It is a country testing whether private investment, tourism demand, and large-scale ambition can build a new rail culture in places once considered permanently dependent on cars. Europe may still possess the denser network, but America is bringing something different to the platform. Speed, competition, comfort, and the confidence to build where people already want to go. After seeing that version of the country, it becomes much easier to understand why a temporary visit can slowly turn into affection, and why the return ticket suddenly feels far less exciting than the arrival. Vegas beats traffic. Las Vegas has always understood one American truth. If a problem becomes annoying enough, someone will eventually put neon around the solution and charge straight through it. That is precisely why the Vegas Loop feels so fascinating to watch. It does not begin with another speech about saving urban civilization. It begins with a simpler question. Why should visitors spend 25 minutes walking across a convention complex when a car could carry them underneath it in about 2?
Okay, I accidentally entered the real-life video game in Vegas. This is Vegas Loop, underground Tesla tunnel in Vegas made to skip traffic.
The original Las Vegas Convention Center loop stretches roughly 7 miles and uses Tesla vehicles inside dedicated tunnels. On paper, the idea sounds almost too ordinary to deserve attention. There is no massive train, no marble platform, and no conductor announcing the next stop in 3 languages. Yet this compact system reveals a deeper cultural difference between Europe and the United States. In cities such as Paris, Madrid, and Berlin, public transportation is designed around moving large crowds through fixed routes. Those systems usually ask passengers to adapt themselves to the network. Las Vegas quietly turns that familiar relationship in the opposite direction. Here, the network tries to adapt itself to the passenger instead. Rather than gathering hundreds of people into one long train, it treats mobility more like a direct service, closer to a private ride that disappears beneath the desert. That feeling of personal control makes the experience unexpectedly addictive. The journey feels individual without requiring travelers to own a car, study a complicated map, or drag luggage through a station designed by an architect who apparently holds a personal grudge against needs. Passengers enter, sit down, and move directly toward the next point. For tourists, that simplicity matters more than transportation experts sometimes admit. People on vacation rarely spend much time dreaming about transfer efficiency. They dream about reaching the hotel before the ice in their drink gives up. Europe's metro systems remain far more mature and capable of carrying enormous passenger volumes, and that achievement deserves respect. The London Underground moves millions because London needs exactly that kind of heavy infrastructure. Las Vegas follows a completely different rhythm shaped mainly by tourism. Its destinations are concentrated, privately operated, and built around entertainment, conventions, and short bursts of movement. A flexible tunnel network speaks the language of the city better than a traditional subway probably would. The American genius here does not come from inventing tunnels or automobiles. Both technologies have been familiar around the world for generations. The cleverness comes from combining common tools into an experience that feels new, quick, and strangely entertaining. It is the transportation version of taking a backyard grill, adding a stadium parking lot, and somehow creating a national holiday. That is why European visitors can find this modest system so memorable. The Loop does not resemble the polished transportation traditions they already know at home. It reflects a country that enjoys testing bold, imperfect answers in public, then improving them where everyone can watch. America has always had a weakness for trying unusual ideas before the rest of the world has finished forming a committee. Beneath Las Vegas, that restless American confidence now travels inside a Tesla. Traffic learns to fly. A strange thing happens when an American traffic jam is viewed from several hundred feet above the ground. The frustration suddenly looks less permanent, and the city begins to resemble a map waiting for someone bold enough to draw a new route across it. That is the real attraction behind electric air taxis from companies such as Joby Aviation and Archer Aviation. The excitement is not simply about watching a futuristic aircraft rise vertically from a rooftop. The deeper appeal comes from the possibility that America may finally turn one of its greatest geographic challenges into a new kind of advantage. European cities were largely shaped before the automobile took control of urban life. Paris grew around compact neighborhoods, London developed around rail lines, and Amsterdam became so friendly to bicycles that a parked bike can appear to have more legal rights than a visiting car. American metropolitan areas followed a different path. Los Angeles covers roughly 469 square miles within its city limits, while Paris proper occupies only about 41 square miles, although their administrative boundaries are organized differently. The comparison still reveals the basic problem. American destinations can be separated by distances that look harmless on a phone screen and feel biblical once traffic begins moving at the speed of refrigerated syrup. Electric vertical takeoff and landing aircraft are designed for precisely that kind of landscape. Joby has described an aircraft intended to carry a pilot and 4 passengers at speeds of up to about 200 miles per hour, with a planned range of roughly 100 miles. Archer's Midnight aircraft is also designed for a pilot and 4 passengers, with its service concept focused mainly on short journeys of roughly 20 to 50 miles. Those numbers matter because they turn the idea from a flying car fantasy into a practical question about airport transfers, business districts, and regional tourism. A journey from an airport to a distant part of a sprawling city can easily consume more time than the flight that brought the traveler there. Europe often solves that problem with rail connections because its major airports and urban centers were built into mature transit networks. America is exploring another tool that fits its own scale. Instead of forcing every city to copy Frankfurt, Zurich, or Copenhagen, it is asking whether the sky can become an extra transportation lane. That possibility is deeply American because it treats distance as a design challenge rather than a permanent inconvenience. The same country that normalized interstate highways, commercial aviation, and overnight delivery is now attempting to shrink urban geography without physically shrinking the city. It is a little like discovering that the ranch house had a second floor hidden in the clouds. The technology still faces serious hurdles involving certification, noise, cost, landing infrastructure, and public confidence. Nobody wants a transportation revolution that requires passengers to become unpaid test pilots. However, the United States has already built one of the world's strongest aviation ecosystems, supported by major aerospace companies, regional airports, military research, and a regulatory system capable of certifying entirely new aircraft categories. That foundation explains why the excitement feels believable rather than decorative. America is not merely displaying a shiny prototype beneath the convention center lights. It is building the rules, aircraft, landing networks, and commercial partnerships needed to turn vertical flight into service ordinary travelers may eventually book from a phone. For Europeans accustomed to trains arriving beneath historic city centers, the American answer can feel wonderfully unexpected. Rather than correcting its vastness, the country is learning how to move through it differently, and that confidence is precisely what makes the idea so difficult to forget. The empty seat. Wins the most persuasive sales pitch for American technology may be an empty driver's seat calmly turning left through downtown traffic, while everyone inside behaves as though this has always been perfectly normal. Waymo's robo-taxis fascinate European visitors because they challenge a deeply human habit. People trust machines most easily when another human appears to be supervising them. Elevators became ordinary after operators disappeared, airplanes rely heavily on automation while pilots remain visible, and driverless metro lines feel reassuring because steel rails decide where the train can go. A Waymo vehicle removes that final comfort. It enters regular streets, reads intersections, waits for pedestrians, and shares lanes with drivers who occasionally treat turn signals like classified information. That small absence changes the entire experience. The empty seat becomes impossible to ignore during the first few minutes because every smooth stop feels like evidence, and every careful turn quietly asks the passenger to reconsider what driving actually requires. Then something unexpected happens. The novelty begins to fade. The car does not become less remarkable, but the passenger's nervous system stops holding an emergency meeting. This is where the American approach becomes especially compelling. Cities such as Paris and Copenhagen have operated automated metro lines for years, yet those trains travel through protected systems with fixed stations and tightly controlled routes. Waymo is attempting something far more intimate by placing autonomous technology inside the messy theater of everyday streets. San Francisco contributes steep hills, cyclists, delivery trucks, construction crews, unpredictable fog, and enough complicated intersections to make a driving instructor reconsider retirement. By October 2024, Waymo reported providing more than 150,000 paid autonomous trips each week across Phoenix, San Francisco, and Los Angeles. That figure matters because it moves robotaxis beyond the category of convention hall entertainment. Hundreds of thousands of weekly rides mean ordinary passengers are using the service for dinners, airport connections, errands, appointments, and late-night journeys when nobody feels particularly eager to make polite conversation. The addictive quality comes from privacy without isolation. A traveler can adjust the temperature, choose music, speak freely with companions, or sit in complete silence without worrying whether the driver finds that silence uncomfortable. After a long flight, this can feel like discovering a small private room that happens to move through the city. There is no debate about directions, no pressure to discuss politics, and no mysterious 5-minute phone call conducted through the car's speakers. Naturally, autonomous vehicles still face difficult questions involving unusual road conditions, emergency response, accessibility, accountability, and public confidence. Admiring American innovation does not require pretending every technical challenge has already vanished. What deserves praise is the willingness to test the technology in real communities, gather experience, improve the system, and allow public trust to grow through repeated use rather than polished promises. European media often presents American cities through traffic, disorder, and endless dependence on automobiles. Waymo complicates that familiar picture because America is no longer merely accepting car culture as it was inherited. It is rewriting the relationship between passenger and vehicle from inside the car itself. The strongest reaction arrives when the ride ends without drama, because the passenger steps onto the sidewalk and realizes the strangest part was how quickly the experience began to feel ordinary. That may be America's greatest talent, turning tomorrow's unsettling idea into something people casually book before lunch. America buys back time. The most luxurious feature on America's newest train is not the seat, the Wi-Fi, or the bright interior. It is the afternoon passengers get back. That is the real reason the next generation Acela can become addictive. The train does not merely shorten distance, it gives travelers control over hours that airports and highways usually swallow without apology. A person can leave Washington after breakfast, work through Philadelphia, watch Manhattan rise beyond the glass and continue toward Boston without removing a belt, surrendering a water bottle, or paying $12 for a sandwich that looks emotionally unavailable. The Northeast Corridor runs about 457 miles from Boston to Washington, connecting the densest chain of major cities in the United States. According to Amtrak's published specifications, the new Acela trains are designed to reach speeds of up to 160 miles per hour and provide nearly 25% more seating than the previous fleet. Those numbers matter because this corridor is not a sightseeing side road. It links political power, finance, universities, media, medicine, and tourism along one continuous urban spine. European travelers already know the pleasure of arriving near the center. A Paris-Lyon train places passengers close to city life, while Eurostar turns London and Paris into a downtown-to-downtown journey. America's Northeast has similar geography, yet foreign coverage often presents American travel as though every useful destination requires a rental car, 3 freeway exits, and the instincts of a NASCAR spotter. Acela quietly interrupts that picture without making a speech about it. Its strongest advantage appears during the journey. A passenger can answer emails outside Baltimore, hold a meeting before Philadelphia, read for an hour, and look up just as New York fills the window. Travel time stops behaving like lost property. It becomes a moving office, a reading room, or a private pause between crowded cities, depending on whether the coffee inspires productivity or a nap. That experience feels distinctly American because it combines public infrastructure with a customer-focused sense of comfort. European rail grew through long traditions of national planning. America often renews familiar systems by asking whether the service can feel easier, sharper, and more personal. The new Acela carries that confidence. It joins the high-speed conversation like someone arriving late to a backyard cookout with a better grill and enough food for everybody. The deeper appeal is not that America has copied Europe. It is that America has recognized where rail fits its own life. Boston, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Washington form a corridor where downtown access can matter more than a dramatic speed record. Passengers step off near hotels, museums, offices, and restaurants instead of beginning another journey from an airport 20 miles away. This is the version of America gloomy headlines rarely explain. Practical, ambitious, comfortable, and willing to improve what millions already use. Once visitors discover that several iconic cities can become one smooth journey, the Northeast no longer feels like separate dots on a map. It feels like one enormous American experience, and the return flight suddenly seems unnecessary. The impossible shortcut. The most American thing about Hyperloop is not the tube, the pod, or the headline speed. It is the refusal to accept that distance gets the final word. When the concept exploded into public attention in 2013, the original Hyperloop Alpha proposal described passenger pods moving through low-pressure tubes at speeds approaching 760 miles per hour. That number was so bold it sounded less like transportation planning and more like someone had challenged geography to a drag race. Yet the fascination never came from speed alone, because the greater promise was that a trip between distant cities could stop feeling like a whole-day commitment and start feeling closer to a long lunch break. That promise lands differently in Europe because the continent already has systems that work beautifully. France's TGV, Spain's AVE, and Italy's Frecciarossa have taught travelers to expect fast rail without needing a futuristic costume. Europe usually improves mobility by refining what already exists: straighter tracks, better signaling, tighter schedules, and stations woven into city centers. Hyperloop comes from a more restless American instinct because instead of asking how much faster a train can become, it asks whether the basic rules around the train still deserve their jobs. That is why the idea remains addictive even before commercial service exists. Hyperloop turns transportation into a national thought experiment, inviting people to picture Los Angeles and San Francisco not as an exhausting airport routine or a long drive, but as 2 points pulled closer together by engineering. America has always been emotionally attached to that kind of shortcut. The interstate highway system made cross-country driving feel possible, commercial aviation made the continent smaller, and overnight shipping taught people to expect a package to cross several states while they slept. Hyperloop fits the same family personality: impatient, ambitious, and slightly offended by waiting. It treats every hour lost in transit as a problem that has somehow escaped adult supervision. Reality, of course, has kept both hands on the steering wheel. A Virgin Hyperloop passenger test in Nevada reached about 107 miles per hour in 2020 on a short test track, far below the original headline figure, and no commercial passenger network has opened. Maintaining low-pressure tubes across long distances, handling emergencies, controlling heat, protecting passengers, and making the economics work are enormous tasks. Concrete does not care how exciting the animation looks on a giant convention screen. Still, coverage that treats every unfinished American idea as proof of failure misses the most interesting part. The gap between dream and delivery is precisely where American innovation often begins. Europe's great infrastructure reminds the world how powerful long-term planning can be. America adds another ingredient, the willingness to place an outrageous idea on the table before every detail is polite enough for a committee room. Hyperloop may eventually become a working system, influence other technologies, or remain a spectacular lesson in engineering ambition. Any of those outcomes would matter because the cultural impact has already arrived. It reminded the world that transportation does not have to be treated as a finished subject. Some countries perfect the timetable, while America occasionally tries to rewrite the clock itself. The missing mile. The most irritating distance in American travel is rarely the longest one. It is the final mile between a train station and a hotel, between a parking lot and a hospital entrance, or between an airport terminal and the building that somehow remains visible, yet refuses to get any closer. That awkward little gap is where autonomous shuttles from companies such as Beep and May Mobility begin to make surprising sense. These vehicles are not trying to race across states or float above traffic. Their talent is quieter and more practical. They connect places that traditional transportation often leaves separated by one wide road, 3 empty blocks, and a sidewalk clearly designed by someone who never carried luggage. The cultural difference becomes obvious when American suburbs are compared with older European cities. In central Vienna, a tram stop may sit within a comfortable walk of apartments, cafes, and shops. In Barcelona, dense neighborhoods allow buses and metro stations to serve thousands of people within a small radius. Many American communities were built on a different scale, with office parks, medical campuses, shopping centers, and residential areas spread across land that seems to have been measured by pickup truck. A full-size bus can be too expensive for those short routes, especially when demand changes throughout the day. Small autonomous shuttles offer another approach. May Mobility has operated autonomous services in American communities, including Arlington, Texas, Ann Arbor, Michigan, and Grand Rapids, Minnesota. Beep has run shuttle projects in locations such as Lake Nona near Orlando, where short automated routes were used to connect parts of a large planned community. The important idea is not the absence of a driver, it is the presence of a connection. That sounds simple until the connection disappears. A modern train can arrive exactly on time, yet the passenger may still need an expensive taxi for the final 10 minutes. A hospital can build a huge parking area, then leave older visitors facing a walk long enough to qualify as their afternoon exercise. An autonomous shuttle fills that space without demanding a subway tunnel, a giant station, or a construction budget with more zeros than a Powerball jackpot. Europe often solves this problem through density and frequent local transit. America is learning to solve it through flexibility. A small vehicle can follow a limited route, operate inside a campus, or respond to demand without sending 40 empty seats around the neighborhood. The shuttle behaves less like a conventional bus and more like a helpful golf cart that attended engineering school and returned with several cameras. That convenience can become quietly addictive because it removes the most annoying part of a journey rather than the most dramatic one. Nobody takes a vacation photo beside the final mile connection, yet everyone notices when it is missing. Once travelers become accustomed to stepping off a train and finding a waiting shuttle, walking half a mile beside 6 lanes of traffic begins to feel like an unnecessary historical reenactment. This is another side of American innovation that pessimistic headlines often overlook. The country is not always chasing the largest machine or the fastest speed. Sometimes it studies an ordinary frustration closely enough to discover that a small vehicle can unlock an entire destination. The future of tourism may arrive in the shape of a flying taxi, but for many travelers, it will first appear as a friendly little shuttle waiting exactly where their patience runs out. America's transportation story is no longer about choosing between the road, the rail, or the sky. It is about refusing to let distance decide how much of life we lose getting somewhere. Some of these ideas will mature, others will change direction, but together they reveal a country still brave enough to build tomorrow in public. Which invention would transform your American journey? Share your choice below and subscribe to the channel for more stories that make America feel possible.